Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, joining me again this morning, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Hartwell. Good morning, everyone.
So this morning, we thought that we would open it up to everyone and see if you had any burning questions for human design that you would like to have answered. So with that, I guess that I will start because we don't have anybody online yet. I'm hoping you're joining us soon. So with human design, there's a lot of things that you can do with it, such as synergize the charts. So we were talking yesterday about business and
Yeah.
how it can also be used for business or project teams or things like that. So how would synergy in a chart work? Like, what is synergy in a chart?
Well, I'm not exactly okay.
Well, you can do relationship ones too, but what is synergy? Like, how does that work when you're looking at two charts?
Well, synergy is a fancy word in astrology and human design for how two people go together and how you can see that through the chart.
Hmm.
Um, because it shows kind of how we affect each other, and it can show us, who might be good to collaborate with,
Hmm.
or there are various kinds of connection in human design. If you
Hmm.
have one side of a if you have a gate on one side and then somebody else has a gate on the other, that's an electromagnetic connection. It creates a magnetic draw between the two people.
Hmm.
If one person has an entire channel and the other person has half, that can be a shared energy, but the one who has the whole channel is, in a sense, the one who takes the lead in relationship to that energy. So there are various ways for us to relate to each other, and the
Kitty
human
photo.
design chart can show some of those things.
Your kitty's photobombing us this morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
Mostly his
morning.
butt is photobombing us and tail.
Yeah. Good morning, Dragonette. If you have any questions about human design or things that you want to know, just please join in and ask us. So you were talking about the channels and how if somebody had the whole channel that they would take the lead. What about if each of them have half the channel? Is there a way that one would be more dominant energy than the other, where they would take the lead, or is it
No,
shared?
it's shared. It's diplomatic. It
Hmm.
is. It is balanced in those cases.
Yeah.
Um, at least that's there might be a bit of a difference if one gate is coming out of a defined channel versus the other not being defined, maybe. But in general, the understanding is that it's a shared sort of balanced energy between the two people and is an indication of potential compatibility.
Hmm. Is that birdies now that are bombing your show?
What's that?
Your squeak. Is that the birds outside?
No, that's the cat playing with a mouse toy.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cute, cute. So is there something in the chart which is more dominant than anything else? Or what would you say in regards to that? So like if somebody was exploring your design, what would be the first thing that they would want to look at of most importance?
Well, that's a little hard to say because there's several things that are important. The profile is very important. Of course, what type you are is the first thing you notice. Are you sacrally defined or are you not? Are you a generator or not? And then, of course, what is the inner authority for the person?
Mhm.
And which channel defines that inner authority? Those are the first things that you would be noticing.
Mhm.
Type, inner authority, profile,
Mhm.
probably the top three. And what is defining that authority specifically?
Mhm. And
Yeah.
what about the incarnation cross? Is that not something that is quite important in human design when looking at the overall design of a person?
It's important in the sense that the sun and the earth, which make up the incarnation cross, are the foundational energies. They're the strongest energy.
Sorry.
And so they do describe the purpose of the person. Bless you. They do describe the purpose of the person, but in terms of living your design, in some ways that gets lived out anyway. So it's not something you need to or can intend. It happens as a byproduct of you being you. So from my perspective, when I'm a 5-1 profile, and 5-1 profiles seek to offer the practical information to people. And so what to me is practical is, what do I need to do in order to live in alignment with my design? So the incarnation cross is very interesting, but it's not, you don't need to know anything about it. It's not part of, okay, how do I live my design?
Right. Is there anything or any advice that you would give someone who is thinking about coming in and having a human design reading? Is there anything they should do, or
find your birth time?
Yeah.
And in my mind, of course, as an astrologer for 40 years, it's worth it to research it. Maybe it feels like a hassle to call up your hospital and maybe sometimes even have to pay for the record. But it is worth it if you want to have this understanding of yourself in a focused way. If you don't have an exact birth time, that does not preclude you from getting benefit from human design or astrology. But if you don't have the exact time, then even an approximate time can be useful.
So here's a good question. You know how we talk about chart envy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a question. Out of all of the 64, what would be the gate that you think that people would want the most?
Gates or channels?
Oh, well, let's do both.
Well, I think some of what we might prefer would be culturally conditioned. And so I can certainly answer, what do I think would be, sexier from the collective consciousness perspective? I think gate 51, the gate of shock, is pretty sexy, because it's all about potentially being a mutational influence in the world and, shocking people into a different level of awareness. That seems to me pretty cool. Gate 57, the gate of intuitive clarity, that's a pretty neat one, because it's sort of about being clairaudient and really having a very having sort of a splenic, survival-based intuition as part of your makeup is super cool. And especially for some of the people that follow clarity and are into progressive thinking, the gate of that gate is pretty neat. I really like the gate 61, the gate of mystery, up in the head center, because that is the gate of knowing things directly and wanting to engage with the mystery of life and having that pressure to connect in that way. That's a pretty cool gate.
So we just got a question in. Jennifer Klein is asking variables. I am a quad right, and where do the variables rate in dominating the design, relating to Kris's question?
The variables are important because they speak to our perspective in life, the way we digest things, the way that we are oriented towards moving through life. In terms of practicality, of practically following your design, to mentally understand what your variables are about, doesn't really help you much. Because if you're not following your strategy and authority, then you will not, in a sense, look at life in the way that is most powerful for you. So we got to understand that the not self-programming of the world really limits us in unfolding to the fullest potential of our designs. Because we're meant to view the world in a certain way, like actually have a perspective that is unique to ourselves.
Okay.
And that the full flowering of the value of that individual perspective is not realized by the vast majority of us.
Yeah.
So yes, it's important. Yes, it's going to be coloring your life, but until you are have gone a certain way in your experiment and really sought to live out your strategy and authority, it's not going to really feel that relevant to you. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be accessible.
Right. I'm not sure. Jennifer's got 4-1 sacral manifesting generator, but I don't know what she's referring to, because it's not really a question. So
yeah.
I'm not sure if it relates to what you were talking about.
No, not directly. 4-1 is somebody who often has a fixed trajectory through life, so they often feel like they have a more fated life than the rest of us. And that's a interesting thing. Yeah. Any other? Yeah. What else?
I don't have anything else from anybody else right now, but maybe we could talk about the channels and what channels you feel are.
What channels are cool?
Yeah.
Well, I think the 1-8 is pretty cool. That's a channel of inspiration from the throat to the G center. That catches my attention because it's all about living in the world in a beautiful, creative way where you seek to be contributing to the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're all really quite super cool, and some of my perspective on this is going to be obviously colored by my own design. I like the 2212, the channel of openness. Mm-hmm. I think that is about, anybody who has that channel can't help but show up in the world as a voice for the solar plexus. So bringing an emotional awareness and charisma to the world that creates a permission for all of us to be and express emotionally. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty neat one.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
I think we need more of that, more of that permission to be emotionally honest and present to ourselves. I think we need more of that in the world. Mm-hmm. Because there is a sense that there might be certain channels that are preferred by life, or preferred, are more valued by the current collective state of our collective conditioning, like maybe the 2034, which is the channel of charisma. Mm-hmm. People who do this are productive, they're doers, they're never stop, they're restless, mm-hmm. they're charismatic, as they live out this busyness in their lives, doing things that they love. Mm-hmm. And I think that, a lot of us would like to have that capacity.
Yeah.
Where the 214 is the capacity to potentially be quite rich, quite wealthy, to be able to access all the resources in alignment with purpose and to live, to do what you love. Yeah. So the 214 really enhances or strengthens that.
Mm-hmm. So what is the most common comment that you get when doing human design readings about the chart and about the design? Is there something that people seek more than others?
Unless people have done some study or have come across human design before they come to me,
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes, I think it's startling to them. I think it's like mind blowing unique.
Mm-hmm.
So if they come to it blind and just say, "Oh, that sounds cool, I'll try it," then I think the most common comment is how surprising it is and how it really has us look at the world in a completely different way. You know,
Right.
there's nothing else like it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably one of the most common comments is like, who knew, that this could all be described through a system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because we're such complex beings, and I guess that's why it takes so long to study this whole system and how it works and how it relates to other systems like astrology and things like that. So, yeah. Is there any final comment that you want to make before we sign off, or any question you thought might be asked today?
In regards to chart envy, I say this again and again, and so people who've been following these videos will have heard this again and again from me. But in my own relationship to envy, looking out at the world and saying, "Oh, wouldn't that be cool if I had that astrological aspect?" Or "Wouldn't that be cool if that were part of my human design?"
Mm-hmm.
I would say to myself again and say to all of us that God created you perfect. And so, really showing up in the world as God wanted us to is about thanking God for the way that He did design us rather than comparing ourselves to other people's designs and wanting to be something that we aren't. It's like if we celebrated and learned to live in alignment with our own designs, there would be nothing to envy because we would be having a life where we were in love with ourselves.
And fulfilled, yeah. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so with that, I guess we'll sign off. We wish everybody a happy, magical, blessed day, and
Thank you
we'll,
for your questions.
yes, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Bye for now.